Dr. William Barris, Director of Medical Services for the Dallas Independent School District, asked that he be granted a leave of absence for personal reasons effective today. Dr. Barris, in his letter of requesting leave of absence, indicated that he was requesting this leave for reasons other than disagreement with policies and procedures of the school district.
Well, naturally, our defensive back situation will be much more difficult to fill because we think with Thomas that we have filled our void in our backfield. With defensive backs, there's hardly any way to tell, which defensive back's going to be a top guy, and the only thing we can do is draft for them. Guys like Denton Fox or Charlie Waters or people like that. These fellas might be the one that will replace them. You really never know.
I'm firmly convinced, after dealing with young people for nearly 25 years now and handling thousands of cases, that you do not give juveniles answers. You have to be intelligent enough to ask the right questions so they can see the right answer for themselves. Now, I'm not saying young people should not be directed. I'm not in favor of permissive behavior. I am saying that a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still, if you'll pardon the trite old saying. So all we can do, all we can hope to do, is create a situation in which the child will see this is a better way. And by doing that, we will have accomplished our purpose. I do that in court, incidentally. I never challenge a child in court. I never say, if you do this again, I'll do that. I may say, son, if you do something to bring you back, you will force me to have to take this action, which I don't want to do. So I hope that you will be able to see it my way.
What kind of results have you been getting?
In our volunteer program?
Yes.
Fine. Last year, for example, in one of our group homes, 12 boys went through it. All went in were failing, some failing everything. At the end of the year, everyone was passing, and one was on the honor roll. And perhaps even more important, many were taking part in extracurricular activities, which is a huge step.
I would say a compassionate conservative. I am not so conservative in the handling of money that I would turn my back on those people or those communities who are in need.
How do you relate that philosophy to Mr. Nixon's veto of the HEW bill last night?
I would rather refrain from comment on that at this moment until I can read the entire text.
Cedric, you're a first-round draft choice with the San Francisco 49ers. How does it feel?
It feels real wonderful. I think it's a real great tribute, first of all, to myself, family, and school, North Texas, which I came from.
You're a pretty big guy now. How tall are you, and how much do you weigh?
Right now, I'm about 6'3" and a half, about 255, 260.
You played defensive end. Do you expect to play defensive end at San Francisco?
Well, I hope so. That's what I think they drafted me for. I haven't even read anything. I haven't talked with them. I wouldn't know right now.
You're, as I said, quite a good-sized man right now, but that hasn't always been the case, has it?
No, not really. When I first enrolled in North Texas in September of '65, I was about 5'11", about 175. And each year after that, I've grown just a little bit taller and gained a little bit more weight.
Ministers aren't supposed to have problems. They're supposed to help solve the problems of other people. But in this day and age, even ministers have their problems. That's why today more than 100 ministers gathered here in the First United Methodist Church in Denton to discuss their problems and try to arrive at some solutions. Ministers face the problems of how to relate to the world at large, how to minister to their own congregations, and how to be a person in this world. Can they solve those problems? Most of the ministers here think yes, they can. Despite this confidence, many ministers leave the church. Many potential ministers never go to work for the church. And many ministers are now frustrated in their work. The church itself also has its own problems. The National Council of Churches recently reported it was broke. Mrs. Madeline Murray O'Hare, perhaps America's best-known atheist, has declared herself a church in order to get a tax break. But the Reverend John Fleming of St. Andrew's Church in Dallas thinks Mrs. O'Hare may be among the best things that's ever happened to religion.
For she sticks up an issue that's very black and very white to confront. And so many of our problems are problems that exist in all the shades of gray. And it's it's very refreshing to come along every once in a while and see issues fairly clearly defined, where you can line up on one side or the other.
Speaking to the conference today, the Reverend Tom Shipp said, "Within the United Methodist Church, we must discard some old methods, preserve some old values. Our change must be selective. If we are not selective, we may increase frustration and loss of morale. This may be the first step in some of those changes." This is Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News at the First Methodist Church in Denton.
Our primary purpose is to work out the various problems in Seattle. We want to stay in Seattle, and we wish somebody would come along and say, well, a Tom Yawkey or a Phil Wrigley or somebody say, here's this. If this would happen, why we wouldn't? We'd all go home.
Well, really, I feel real nice, and I feel better for not being charged with murder. Furthermore, if I'd have knew it business is bad, I wouldn't have ever did it in the first place. Been accused, but
Of course, you wouldn't have been charged had you not walked in and made that confession. What made you do that?
well, really because the pistol was mine, and I just figured I was going to be caused for it. But I had never been there in jail before. I didn't know how it was going to be.
You weren't arrested with that pistol, was you?
No, I was not. It was my sister's
The other
pistol.
man had it, didn't he? You never.
Oh, he had it during the time the shooting was. He had it.
But when he got arrested, he had it. Who had the gun? Did you have a gun when you were arrested?
When I was arrested, no.
Yeah.
Yes, Coach East, I think the school board member misunderstood the role of the classroom teachers of Dallas in this situation. The classroom teachers of Dallas as an organization cannot and will not become involved in politics as an organization. But this is not to say that its members, who are also citizens of Dallas, will not become involved in politics and choose the candidates of their choice for a school board, legislature, governor, senator, so forth. This is something that we as teachers need to be involved in.
The man in custody is a 21-year-old convicted narcotics figure who was given a probated 4-year sentence just last year. The man, who remains unidentified at this time, has not been charged but is being questioned as a prime suspect. According to the Assistant District Attorney, Jim Morgan, the man was arrested after a stakeout by Morgan and Texas Ranger Tom Arnold. The stakeout near Coffey's residence on Fort Worth's southwest side centered around a car in which $500 had been placed in a tin can. In the extortion letter received last Monday, the money was demanded or threatened harm to Coffey's family. As the officers watched that car, a young woman arrived and searched for the money. She was taken into custody, and the apprehension of the suspect took place about 10:30 this morning. Assistant DA Morgan said the handwriting in the letter is similar to that of the man now being held, but he added that a handwriting expert had not confirmed that. The letter also reportedly mentioned a youth now being held in the county jail. It's believed that the suspect knows that youth. Morgan told newsmen today that charges may be filed before tomorrow. But until the case is closed, Frank Coffey's home is still under armed guard. This is Gene Thomas, Channel 8 News in Fort Worth.
Today, there are 50,000 North Vietnamese troops in Laos. There are 40,000 of them in Cambodia. They are now already penetrating Thailand. Obviously, even if we succeed in having them retreat from Vietnam, they are going to consolidate in Laos and then move against one of these other countries, and most people think it's going to be Thailand. The United States will not be able to, politically or any other way, send the manpower to stop aggression there. If they move through Thailand, and they'll go down to Malaya and down to Singapore, this would be a very, very strategic move. Therefore, we have to begin thinking now, and a Senate race is a good place to begin forming some kind of a non-communist alliance of free nations that will supply the manpower that will move into any breach if any of these aggressions take place.
I foresee a kind of university of the world that would be put together on three components. One, a synchronous satellite, which would stay in a given position vis-a-vis the Earth. Three of these would blanket the Earth with television. These would have to be able to be contacted by individual students by just punching a set of numbers on a television set. This would activate the satellite to question a memory bank on 3 positions on Earth to get the data, the program that the student wants in the proper language. Then this would be retransmitted in a matter of seconds, so that from the time the student punched the number out of a telephone book, which would be like a University of the World catalog of what he wanted to learn, either from beginning with literacy on through atomic physics or whatever, he would have this disposable to him.
Will it be possible in the future for, say, a lady to just put on another face, like one puts on a wig today? That's forthcoming?
Well, it has to do with her thinking, I think. She can put on a negative face or a positive face. Let's hope they're all positive, because then the lines are up.
Okay, and speaking of lines, there's a lot of, will there be more painting in the future as far as makeup for women are concerned, or less?
Well, I think less, and I think that there are going to be also capsules we can take to change the color of our eyes, or the color of our hair, or the color of our skin.
Wonderful. I was wondering if say a lad like me, a healthy, black, handsome youngster, if I could just change over and become,
Well, none of us are happy with the way the things God has given us. I don't know why. We should be. But I know that white skins want to get tan, and they go out in the sun and they get leathery.
I've often heard of this, but I want to know, a black one being able to bleach himself out.
Oh, sure. It's going to happen.
It can be done?
In the next decade, I'm sure that there will be pills for us to take and of course, to influence however we want our children to look, whether we want them to have blue eyes or brown eyes or red hair or blonde hair or whatever we want to have happen, or male or female. I think it's going to be...
Just by taking of a pill?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be a very...
It's all smiles for Dallas civic leaders today, and no more sick jokes about this big hole, the excavation site for the proposed Dallas Convention Center. A couple of months ago, when there was no what the council considered acceptable bid for the convention center, the story ran around that this big hole would be turned into a lake, with the city manager running a paddle boat concession to try to make some money out of it. But there'll be no paddle boats. There will be a convention center. The city council this morning accepted a bid on the $24 million of bonds. The construction contract was awarded, and this afternoon the Chamber of Commerce announced the first major convention booking for the center. Curiously enough, the bid that was accepted was $7.466243, higher than the original 7.18% bid that was considered too high. But the city fathers say actually it will cost less money.
Well, the terms of the issue had to be redesigned. In the first issue, there was 16 million bonds that would not be paid off until 30 years from issue date. However, in the market today, they felt that they could sell the bonds better if they were paid off part each year from the 5th to the 30th year. This makes the total aggregate interest $38,753 at the bid rate of today, whereas on the other issue, because of the longer term, it would have cost $43,123 in interest.
Well, since it will have no direct consequences to the local taxpayer, and it will carry itself through its earning power, I don't see any dire consequences. It's true that it had been a lot better if we built this some years ago, but we can't go back and do that. The cost will probably be one that would increase steadily if we postponed it. And it triggers so much in the way of good things that will help Dallas be a better city in rejuvenating the whole downtown area, that I think it's worth the slight additional load that may make some minor contribution of an inflationary nature.
The American Academy of Ophthalmology and Otolaryngology will commence to hold its conventions, its general sessions in Dallas in the new convention center, commencing in September of 1972 for a period of 3 years, with an option for another 2 years. And we're very hopeful that they will exercise the option. This is a convention of major proportions. It will be the first major medical convention to be held in the new facilities, which were authorized by the City Council today, and will probably mean over the 3-year period for which they're definitely committed $12 million in convention revenue to the city.
Working in good faith that an acceptable bid would be found, the contractor has begun some preliminary work. Full effort on the convention center will begin in just a matter of days. This is Teal Salon at the site of the Dallas Convention Center.
It was shortly after 7 o'clock this morning when about 40 police officers converged on this motorcycle shop and the house nearby, armed with warrants for the arrest of persons suspected in the murder of 3 persons January 20th. 4 men and 2 women were taken into custody. So far, 5 of them have been charged and others still sought. They are all named in warrants in connection with the brutal shooting of 4-year-old Daniel Ramirez Jr., his 22-year-old father, Daniel Sr., and an uncle, 26-year-old Sammy Ramirez. The bodies of the 3 men were found in a car left on a downtown parking lot the night of the murder. The arrest this morning resulted from an investigation led by Police Detective Lieutenant Oliver Ball. I talked with Ball about the raid.
We met at 5:30 and started toward the location around 6:15 and arrived at 6:20. We called the defendant on the phone, and when we got set up, and told him that the place was surrounded and that he would better come on out. So he said, well, he'd come out as soon as they got dressed. About 10 minutes later, with a little suggestion on the loudspeaker to come on out. Well, they did start coming out one at a time.
Charged with murder were 28-year-old Michael Papaskar Jr., his wife, 26-year-old Bonnie Fay, and 3 other persons whose full names are not known. The warrant only names them as 21-year-old Limpy, 18-year-old Harold, and 20-year-old Daniel. All gave this house and motorcycle shop as their address. The arrests apparently were the result of cooperation with police by informants in the narcotics world. It's reported that the murder of that small boy was the thing that even the underworld would not stand still for. This is Gene Thomas, Channel 8 News in Fort Worth.